Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I know some of your faces and some of you and some I don't. So if you don't mind if we go around the room real quick and say who we are and how long we've been in the business. So we'll start with you, Tony, even though I know you.
Okay, Tony Paulson, I've been in business for 3 years and I work with Debbie Rector.
Wade Thomas with ERA, brand new rookie.
All right.
Richard Sims, 30 plus years, 3 states, mortgages also, commercial, investments, residential.
Now that, to me, that's awesome. Richard's been in it 30 years and he's like me. I still go to classes because when we stop learning, we stop growing. So I commend you for coming after 30 years. You obviously know how to run a real estate business.
Hi, I'm Lori Kellner. I'm with ERA and I've been in business about 4 months.
Congratulations, awesome.
I'm Carol Bartlett, and I just started with Sherry Parker, and I was a registered nurse, I still am, but I retired from that job for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
I got my license beginning of this month.
Wow, and you're not wearing pink, but you got a pink pen, so you're all right.
She went to Vermont.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Sandra Oler, and I am with ERA Suncoast Realty. I have been licensed since January.
Wow, awesome, well, welcome.
I'm Kelly Tedrick. I'm with ERA also, an American in Beverly Hills, and I've been licensed since May 30th.
Congratulations.
John Mazel, active agent realty, been in business for eight years now. Also on the board of directors for the Realtors Association.
And incoming secretary.
My name is Felicia Sancho. I'm with Century 21 Nature Coast. I've been in the business for 4 months.
Oh, awesome. So we have a lot of newbies here. Awesome, that's great. And I commend you guys too, because there is a lot to learn about real estate that you do not learn at your real estate class. They teach you all the stuff you'll never use. And then they send you out and hope for the best. So, welcome. I know a couple of you, and I don't know some of you, so let me tell you really quickly how long I've been in the business. Not as long, Richard? Not as long as Richard. I've been in it about 18 years. I started as a RE/MAX agent. My first year I was a buyer specialist. Is anyone here a buyer specialist? For anyone? No? Well, back then, we started this thing called the buyer specialist because I did not want to do listings. I could hear those agents going, and I'm like, I never want to work with a seller that's calling up going, why haven't you sold my house, why haven't you sold my house? So we were one of the first people to start this thing called the buyer's specialist. Our average sales price was $52,000 in Citrus County. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have, I think the fax just came out, you know, all that. I closed over $5 million my first year as a buyer specialist. So I decided that maybe listings weren't so bad. And now I'm considered a heavy listing agent, and I don't even want to work with a buyer anymore. So it's funny how things change and what you want to do. But it's been 18 years, it's been very good to me. And I'm going to just do a little quick, I guess, promo for getting active in the Board of Realtors. My first 16 years, I did nothing for this association. Nothing. I was like, I don't need them. I just need MLS. I don't care. And a good friend of mine who's broker of RE/MAX, I'll just say it, Steve Varnado, said, I don't want to hear you complain anymore until you get involved. So just keep that in mind, because it was the best thing I ever did. I got to know agents that I really didn't know unless they were selling my listings or I was selling one of theirs. And it's just been nothing but great for me. And John will tell you, I went in kicking and screaming. No, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And it's been a wonderful experience. So if you have any free time, it's a great way to learn. I've learned a lot just being affiliated with the volunteers in the association. So enough said about that. All right. Before we get into the 10 Commandments of Contract Negotiation, this is what I created. And I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, and I apologize. I'm going to have to look at my notes because I live it. But for me to be able to tell you the bullet points, I'm going to have to look. I think it first starts with attitude. if you don't have a good attitude about the contract, it'll never happen. So how many of you here have written an offer, I know you're new in the business, and I'm sure Richard has written with the years in it, that the agent starts yelling at you when you present them with a contract that's less than perfect? Has that happened to you?
It might have happened in the earlier years, which I can't remember.
Or, you know, I've heard this, oh, I'm not presenting that offer. We all know that's wrong, right? You know that that's wrong. I just want to make sure. So, oh, someone's coming in. When I start my day off, if I let someone upset me, what happens when you start your day off and someone cuts you off in your car? Does your day get better? Or does it get worse? Usually gets worse because you start, everything goes downhill because of your attitude. So if you have the right attitude, your day gets better. You get a contract on a house and all of a sudden everything good's happening to you all day long. I mean, it just depends on your memento. So when I get an offer from someone that's less than perfect, and I got one this weekend, it was downright ugly. It wasn't even, it was a letter of intent. I haven't seen one of them in a long time. But I thanked the agent and I sent her brownies, and I'll explain that in one of my commandments. So let's start with commandment number 1, which is be positive and professional.
Good morning, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Good to see you. It's good to see you. As a real estate agent, we're required to be positive and professional to get our job done. When another agent sells one of your listings or writes an offer on one of your listings and it's less than perfect, it's not that they wanted to. What would be the easiest thing for them? To write you a cash full price offer with $20,000 in escrow, right? So when they write you a contract and it's $50,000 below and it's got all these contingencies, it's making their job harder. But most of the time, it's because that's what their buyer wants. And they're not educated enough to educate their buyer. I mean, I've had it come across my desk, and it's a different commandment, where it says contingent on satisfactory home inspection. And I say, just curious, how come you wrote this? The inspection is in the body of the contract. Oh, my buyer wanted it to be contingent on a home inspection. So it's them not being educated to educate their buyer to say, it's here, you're protected here, blah, blah, blah. But they are trying to, when they write one of your listings and offer one of your listings, they're trying to feed your business. They are trying to make you money, whether they realize it or not. They're looking at it as making their own money, but they're making you money. So be positive and professional when you get an offer. The first thing that you need to do, what is the first thing you should do when you get an offer from an agent? Anybody?
You let them know you got it?
Well, that's great, and they should let you know. By the way, when you send it, you should let them know it's coming. I got one through the email and no one called me, and I'm not one of those people that keeps it on my phone, otherwise I'd never get anything done. Say thank you. It's amazing. It is amazing how a hostile, because they're like this. They're ready for you. Because they're getting it from other agents like that. So they're like, I'm going to send it in. Say thank you. I don't care if it's a horrible offer. My mantra is, thank you very much, Tony. And if it's a bad one, I know they're not going to take it. I'm sure you knew when you wrote this that this isn't going to get accepted. But what I can promise you is I will get you the best counter offer I can. So you're setting the stage, you're thanking them, and you're preparing them, right? Instead of going, oh my God, this is horrible, I'm not presenting it. Then what if I said that to you, what would you do? You would get defensive and be like, what do you mean? So I'm thanking you, I'm taking that tension off, and I'm saying, and I'm letting you know, let's work together to try to put this deal together. So this is when same thing if you're getting a counteroffer. If they throw you back a counteroffer, you've presented them an offer, and I throw you back a counteroffer, you can't get defensive. I had one, and I'm going to tell you stories to this because this is the only way you're going to understand it. I got a letter of intent on a $495,000 listing over the weekend. Letter of intent. Nothing about escrow. Nothing about closing date. it was contingent, it was 400,000 on 495, with the seller giving them financing on the furniture for 35,000 and all this furniture, amortized over 15 years. No prepayment, no balloon. Contingent on them moving their VA loan from their one house to this one. Contingent on a house in Floral City selling. Didn't say if it was under contract. I think that's the gist of it. Good morning. So not a great offer, right? What would most agents do? No. They would have to obviously call the seller, but they would go, really? So I called my seller and I go, listen, you got a minute? And I went through it, and he of course was like, I said, would you do a second? That's not the best position, but we talked. He said, I would. He said, 490. Well, that wasn't a big jump. And I knew it. I said, that's as low as you're gonna go? He goes, for this offer. I said, perfect, I get it. And we went into some other stuff. He said, the 90,000, second mortgage, 15-year amortized, or 30 with the 1 to 3 year balloon. And I said, okay, we're gonna tell him this is all contingent on how much in escrow. So I wrote this nice email to this agent. This is our counter, and it's contingent on seeing the contract on the one house that's under contract that they're moving the VA. Do they have a contract on this other house? And if so, seeing that, what time frame do they want to close? What kind of escrow are they talking about putting in? Because she didn't want to write a contract, so I was just kind of giving her, these are things we're going to need to know. And I said, I really think, because he gave me permission, I really think my seller will come down more. But this was just to let your buyer know, hey, we're willing to talk to you. We need to get some answers to these questions, and we're willing to talk. So I emailed it off to the agent, and I called, and I got a text in a class, great. And I said, texted her back, I said, call me when you get out, I want to discuss my email, which I was pretty clear in it, that there was more room, we just needed to verify these things, and then we'll go from there. If they all sound good, I'll get them down. What do you think I got? About 2 hours later, a text saying, buyer moved on. That was it. There was no communication. She didn't try to say to her client, I guarantee you, let's give them the more and see where we can go from here. But if they thought they were going to get that house with that like that, good luck on the next one. Because I guarantee the next agent, if you present something like that, isn't even going to give you the time of day. So sometimes it works. What I'm saying is I took a crappy offer and was nice. And by the way, I sent her brownies. I sent her a thank you for trying, and I sent her brownies. And that's the big joke around the agents that know me. They're like, I'm right with Deb just because I need the brownies. I hear they're awesome. I need them. Everybody knows Steve Latif, obviously. He wrote an offer on one of mine. It fell apart after inspections. It wasn't his fault, it was his buyer's fault. The house fell apart. Inspections were horrible. And I called him. I said, oh, I'm really sorry. Can I get a copy of this report so I don't waste anybody else's time? He said, yeah. And then this meek voice, Steve Latif, said, do I have to return the brownies? I said, no, keep them. Yeah, that was awesome that you got the contract. So, but that's what it's all about. So people aren't afraid to call you with their deals and write an offer. They know they're not going to get their head bit off. So be positive and professional, and say, the first thing is to say, thank you for writing the contract. I'll do my best to get you the best response. Okay? Don't let your ego, this is the one in there, do not let your ego get in the way of the contract. I have seen more realtors blow deals for their client because they want to win. This isn't about a battle. This is about a negotiator. And I was explaining to a friend, we were driving back yesterday in the car, and I said, I got to get back. I got to teach this class. We're leaving today. We're up in the Panhandle. And I said, we're leaving today to teach this class. He was asking about what it was, and I told him, I said, negotiation is about getting people to do what you want them to do without them knowing that they're doing what you want them to do. It's a chess game. So many agents think that negotiations is a battle. and that I have to win. So don't let your ego get in the way of a transaction. Your position is a mediator. You're the one that's supposed to keep everybody calm. So you have to not get emotional, because your buyers and your sellers are gonna get emotional enough for the both of you. Okay? And I like this one. When you're presenting your counter offer back, and you've got a client that has said, I would rather burn my house down, and I've heard this, and so have you, if you're laughing, then sell it to them. Guys, I'm telling, you've heard something, maybe not that, but I'm sure in the business, you have heard it, and you're going, yeah, how's that gonna work as a reply? And then I've had people say, absolutely not. I am not taking this offer. I will burn the house down. I'll donate it to charity. And this is what I say to them. Sleep on it. Let's sleep on it tonight. Because even myself have to realize about a knee-jerk reaction. My assistant, been with me 9 years, said to me one day, and she taught me a very good lesson, and I'm going to tell it to you guys, and it's working with my clients. I was really mad. Someone wrote me a nasty email, and I was younger, just wrote, probably 9 years ago. She probably wasn't working for me for that long. And it was just a nasty email, and I went, oh, I started to type, and she goes, hey, Deb, and she took her job at risk because I was mad. She went, can I just say something? And I'm like, what? She said, usually you calm down in about an hour. I had to wait to respond to that agent in about an hour. And I went, oh my God, that was the best advice Kathy Appy, I'm gonna say her name, has ever given me. She took a chance because she was like this. I mean, she probably was working for me for a year, and she was like, and I went, and I'm mad. Steam is coming out of my ears, and I went, all right, fine. And then I've learned from that, and that is exactly what I do. And then I started bringing it into my contracts with my clients. They're giving me that knee-jerk reaction. Don't let them give it. If they say to you, go back with this, don't call that agent back with it. Call them in the morning and say, I couldn't get hold of the agent. Even if they say I don't want to see back, couldn't get hold of the agent. They've called me back. I just want to make sure he's still on that page. Because most of the time, what happens is over the night, and I'm probably getting into a different commandment, they're going to start thinking about it and thinking about what they would do. And they're actually starting to move out in their head. And I'm not saying they're going to take that offer, but probably going to get more realistic of the what ifs. What if they put it to get up higher? You know what I mean? But if you slam the door in a buyer's face, they're going to move on most of the time. So don't share your hostilities. Don't call Debbie Rector up and go, yeah, they're going to burn the house down. I mean, because what am and I'm not an agent that's going to say, geez, I shouldn't bring that to the buyer. Because again, share hostilities either way. You don't call even if some realtor is crazy enough to say they're burning the house down before they sell it to your client, don't go to your client and say they're burning the house down before they sell it to you. Even if another agent shares hostilities, don't share it with your client. So this is what's going to happen. Tammy, even if I don't get a counter, because I can't, I'm going to push for a counter, but if I don't, Tammy, I'm really, really sorry. Unfortunately, we're just too far apart, and I couldn't get my client to give you a counter offer because they feel that they would be wasting your client's time when their valuable time when they could be looking towards their second choice. Because we're so far apart, they don't want to play that game with your client when they could be moving forward and getting into the contract negotiation on their second choice. Now, what's she thinking? What are you thinking?
I'm gonna call my buyer and encourage them to rethink their mind.
Am I saying they're gonna burn their house down? Because if you said that to your client, they're gonna go, they can take their house and stick it where the sun doesn't shine. But I'm telling her that one, I'm sorry, and I'm telling her my client doesn't want to waste her buyer's time. They don't want to waste their time because they're so far apart by playing a game with them. If they know we're just not even close, they want them to move on. So now they have a little respect for the seller because they're actually saying, we want you to be able to move on and go for your second choice. Thank you though. Even if my client doesn't say thank you, I'm saying they're saying thank you. So, you don't want to share the hostilities, either way. Either way. Always bring back your counter with a positive attitude, which is what I just told you. I already told you a story, you don't need to hear another story. All right, so you write an offer. Say it's good, but it's not where the seller's at. How many overpriced listings are out there? But you've done your homework, and you should, and you write a contract. Always write an explanation with your contract. I have seen contracts come across my desk, faxed, to Deb Rector, page 1 of 11. And there's no explanation. There's no where they came up with it. There's no story for me, there's no explanation at all. There might be and here's one, and they're pre-approved. I love this one. Yeah, Deb, and they're pre-approved. I'm not finding a pre-approval letter. If they're pre-approved, don't make me call you and ask for the pre-approval letter. And I'm telling you, if you're the listing agent, call and ask for the pre-approval letter. If someone says they're pre-approved, I'm not saying the agents are lying because they're probably not, but the buyers think they're pre-approved because they talked to a couple banks and chit-chatted, and they think they're pre-approved. So write an explanation, get the info. If it's contingent on a closing in New Jersey, present it with that contract, because I guarantee if you're working with someone like me or John or sure Richard, we're going to say, and Tammy, where's the contract? We need to look at it. So we might counter you contingent on reviewing that contract. So let's just get that out of the way. So make sure that you have an explanation. And if you've got a good offer, and it's the listing price is here and your price is here, but it's because this is where it needs to be, send it with comps. And don't say, because my assistant's done that, well, I told her, we checked the comps. I've heard that one to me. Oh yeah, we've checked the comps, and this is where we're coming at. First of all, I'm going to check the comps if I don't already know it, and if my listing's overpriced, I already know it. But most don't. But I'm going to check them. No one else is going to, guys. I guarantee it. So present it with the comps and say, this is where my client came in. Don't want to insult you. It's just they're doing their due diligence, and especially if they're going to find and say, they want to make sure they're not wasting the seller's time and their time, and it doesn't appraise. So this is how we came up with this offer. Does that make sense? So it's not about, I joke, I go, realtors go and they get their license and they learn it all, and then they go out there and they try to get clients, and eventually they try to get the listings if they're smart. That's the first thing you want to do, but that's another day. And they get their listings and they get it marketed, and then they get the contract, and then they stop working and they start pushing paper. And that's where the real work is getting the contract negotiated successfully. That's almost where I think real estate falls back, because they don't know how to handle it, and they just paper push. So, all right. So don't just fax it over and, oh, please God, call them and tell them it's on its way. Because I've had this. Deb, I sent you a contract. You haven't got back to me. I'm like, I didn't get it. I mean, sometimes the email screws up, especially when you're dealing with a large doc. Fax machine, sometimes that screws up. I had a guy call me yesterday and said, Deb, I sent you a contract. And guess what? It wasn't on my email. But now I know to tell them, hey, I never got it. So don't just send it over. And it's a good time to reiterate what you said. But don't just say it, write it. Because my hopes when I write it is they're showing it to their client. That's my hope. I write it hoping they're showing it to their client. Because if I just say it to them, they hear blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Because they're thinking about, what are they going to say when I shut up? So you write it and you reiterate it to them. Backup offers and counter offers. Does anyone here on the listing agreement have that they'll accept backup offers once an offer is accepted? Anybody else? Why not? On your listing agreement, why would you not have that will take backup offer, that the seller allows you to present them backup offers. There's nothing wrong with a backup offer. You know, and I've had agents get in a bidding war with me, or I've got a house under contract and they'll call me and they'll say, how strong is it? I'm like, it's not bad, but you know, if you wanna write a backup offer, well, you know what, if it falls apart, you let me know. I'm like, I'm gonna do everything in my power that this still doesn't fall apart. But if you write a better backup offer, I can guarantee that there's someone not gonna do their job here and I can get you in. Not that I would. Well, yeah, I would, because my job is for the seller. But you know what I mean? So backup offers are fine, and you should certainly have that in this agreement to present them backups. And I know we talked about it, but the thank you card, if you write me an offer and I don't get, and it doesn't get accepted, or if it does get accepted, you get a thank you card from me. And how that started was about 10 years ago. I had an agent write a horrible contract. And it was a big one, 10 years ago, $400,000. That's like the big money, it's still the big money deal around here. But picture 10 years ago. So he writes it, and it had this many contingencies. I apologize if anyone in here is an engineer, but if you've ever worked with an engineer, you know what I'm talking about. It was an engineer that was trying to buy this house. They stay awake thinking of stuff to worry about. And I would tell them that, I've told it to engineers. So anyway, an engineer wrote it, it was low, and then it had a bazillion contingencies. And I'm not gonna get into all of them because I can't remember all, but I remember one in particular that said, seller is not to use gas fireplace from now, ever again, like till the closing. I mean, that's along with open-ended contingencies that I could not let my seller live with, that were gonna put him in a bad situation. So I counter the whole thing, no, no, no. And I said to my client, she goes, oh, no one's telling me not to use my fireplace. I'm like, really? It's the summer, are you gonna use it? Well, no. I said, then let's pick our battle. Let's give them this one, because we're taking all of these away from them. So we did, and we counted on price. And I explained why each one, we would take them, this is gonna put the seller in a bad position, it's open-ended, your client is protected here under this verbiage. I mean, I explained every reason for change, and I always do, for changing, especially handwritten verbiage. And the agent calls me, he goes, yeah, we don't have a deal. It was kind of like the agent the other day. Yeah, no. I said, well, okay, appreciate it. Didn't think so, but it was worth a try, because I changed so much. And I felt bad for this agent, so I just wrote him a thank you card and sent him a gift certificate at Applebee's. Man, I know you worked hard on this one. I'm really, really sorry we weren't able to put it together. Have a great day. And I went off to the beach. And I'm sitting at the beach, and the agent calls me, who I've known for years, and he goes, hey, Deb, how you doing? I said, I'm good. How are you? And he said, I'm good, but I got your thank you card in the mail. And I said, yeah. I said, I wanted to thank you for trying, because in my mind, I believed him. We were done. I said, I just wanted to thank you for trying. And he went, my client still wants the house. Then that's the counter offer. They bought it, they took my counter offer. But, so what I call that is a nice takeaway. I believed them. I believed they were done. So I sent him a thank you card. And that has happened over the years. Because when I send you a thank you card, because the deal hasn't happened, I believe you. The deal is, you know, if you say to me, Deb, we can still work, I gotta give him a little bit more, or if you can work, then I'm gonna continue working with you. But when you say the deal's done, the deal is done. And I'm gonna say thank you, and the deal is done. And then the nice thing is it comes from the seller. Guys, make sure it comes from the seller, because you might write an offer that was so horrific that it would never get done. And you're afraid to go into that client's house again because you think they're going to take a gun and shoot you. Right? So I want you to know that the seller thanks you, doesn't hold you responsible. Please continue to try to sell the house. And that's what I tell the seller. Hey, this agent's trying to sell your house. We want to keep them to continue to try to sell your house. I don't want him to be afraid to go in because he wrote an offer. Because most of the time when an agent likes a house, they're going to continue to show it. So the nice takeaway, thank them, You don't have to give them a gift, but a handwritten thank you card will go a long way. Will go a long way. That's commandment number 1, be positive and professional. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? All right. This is me, and I'm gonna poll the seasoned agents in the room. Commandment number 2 is say no to verbals. Tammy?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Richard, do you accept verbals on your?
Well, a verbal from a non-seasoned person, you have to explain that, it's valid, but it's not enforceable. And my client wants something in writing, and we've discussed this already, and I think this offer has merit, and I'm certainly going to submit any and all offers. However, we have to codify this and put it in writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Intent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How strong they are.
Yeah.
Like, the original, your story about the offer that you received, and you couldn't get it together, the list of contingencies was so long. It almost sounded like they were fishing.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? It just sounded like a fishing expedition,
I don't think they were ready to buy. I think they have a lot of things they need to work out.
Right.
But I agree, and I agree with you, Richard. I mean, that is perfect. That's perfect, because that's exactly it. Do you have no verbals on your listing agreements?
No, I'd take verbals just to kind of gauge where the buyer's interest level's at, if it's a real buyer or not.
See, and we're all different. And John's a very successful realtor too. I personally, my buyer's agent called me today and goes, yeah, I showed your house yesterday and they want for a verbal. I go, Kathy, why are you even calling me? You should be able to say to them, it's not in my policy, and move on, She goes, and they want to know if you want to rent it. I go, is there a for rent sign? I'm like, I'm sorry I sent you out to show them. But anyway, my feeling on verbals are, first, my word just says, just say no to verbals. And my feeling about it is, there's so much more involved. Perfect example of this letter of intent. It was not a verbal, it was a letter of intent, and the buyer signed it, but it had no escrow. It had no closing date, and that had no, when are they gonna make application for bank for this VA loan? There was so many what ifs. So I'll say to someone, they'll call, and I think, Tammy, I think you called me with a verbal when that house first came on the market. I'm like, Tammy, I can't do it, but I'll hold it for you for a day until your people get there. That 200,000, you remember that was on the market a day, you're like, they don't wanna lose it.
Yeah.
I don't wanna lose it. I'm like, get it in writing, you know?
No, of course, but
Yeah.
I needed to ask.
Yeah, well, and that's it, most people do. Well, in that situation, they were in the house, flying out that day, and I said, I guarantee you, I will not accept anything until you get it in writing when they land. But that was a different situation, and I did say to her, get it in writing, and it can happen. Kind of like what you said, I can get it to happen if you write what you say you're writing. But a lot of the times, I'll get someone and I'll say, I don't accept verbals, and they'll say, well, da, 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 da. The first thing out of their mouth is, well, I didn't want to waste my time. What does that tell you? Not a very good offer. Usually verbals are not very good, and they're fishing. And I'm sorry, until they sign their name, they're not gonna hear what my client is willing to give.
And I even think when I called you on that, it was more to give you the heads up that I had somebody active, just like couldn't get them on paper.
Well, they were
And it was
flying
more
out.
to put her on notice, say, hey, there's another offer coming, so that she could present potentially too.
Well, they had stayed longer I remember the deal. They stayed longer to look at the house because it just came on the market and she was fine. She was like, and I was like, you'll get it, just get it in writing. I think that's what it was. She told me it was. But most of the time when I say to them, if they're giving me a hard time about the verbal, I'll say, okay, how much? And they'll tell me, and it's down here, and I'll say, how much in escrow? I don't know. How, are they going for financing? Yeah, they're going for financing. How much are they going for financing? Oh, I don't know. It goes on. Are there any other contingencies? Well, I just got the price. Yeah, there's so much more to a contract, guys, than the price. I might get a contract with this, and there's no contingency. I'm going to take that where if it's got a lot of contingencies, then it just all depends, on what you're going to do. So I just say no to verbals, and I like to know about, because I like to know about escrow, about the terms, inspection periods. Is it gonna be as is? Is it not gonna be as is? And by the way, just FYI, I hate as is contracts. So if you think you're doing your client a favor by writing an as is on mine, like, oh, Deb will like this, I hate them. So unless I'm listing it as is, it's not a good thing for me, and I'll explain that later. As a listing agent, I choose to work as not taking verbals. It's in my listing agreement. No verbals. So I don't have to. If someone says you have to, no, I don't. It's in my listing agreement that I don't have to present a verbal. As a buyer's agent, you can do the same thing as your work ethic. You know, listen, and you can blame it on me. I know this agent, they're not gonna take a verbal. Plus, I choose to work professionally and all my contracts are in writing. So I'll be glad. It's only gonna take a few minutes. Let's put it in writing. They're going to accept, they're going to look at it in a better light because they're gonna see that you took the time. They're gonna be able to see all the terms. And if they say, well, I don't wanna put any money down, guess what? We do it upon acceptance. We do it 3 days upon acceptance. So you can get around it and say, they're going to take it more seriously if we put it in writing and spell out everything that you want. So as representing a buyer, you can choose to say no. Now, if they say, absolutely not, I want to throw a verbal, then you call the agent and you say, listen, I tried, and then let the agent come back and say, not going to accept a verbal. They may say, throw it at me. They may say, what do they want? You got to remember though, if you're not going to take that verbal, you need to check that box. Okay, because you can't refuse to present a verbal unless you check that box on your listing agreement. It's up there with the backup offer section on the top of the page, I think, 2, 3. What could happen with a verbal? Things that you discuss all of a sudden are different. That's happened to me. Oh, did I forget to tell you all this was contingent on the sale of their house in Nebraska? Oh, little thing they forgot to tell me. Or they got it and then they second thought it. Yeah, I know we said 5,000 in escrow, but we're only going to put 1,000. That's what can happen going from a verbal to in writing. And guys, the only reason I say this is it's happened to me. Everything I tell you has happened to me over the 18 years. This is just stuff that I got caught with.
You know, Deb,
Yes?
and that's kind of what, like Tammy said, she had somebody coming in, so she called you and kind of put you on alert that you had an offer coming in. Can't tell you how many times agents have actually showed the house, called me and said, yeah, we're heading back to the office to write it up. I'm going to be sending you an offer this afternoon. And then nothing ever comes.
Yeah, and that's why you never
They
call your
changed their mind
seller.
From the time they
I
left the
wouldn't
house to
do
the time they
that.
get back to the office.
I wouldn't do that, I'd call
You
instead.
never have.
No, I know, I wouldn't do that.
But that has happened. And I've had it, and that's why the young days, this is what I would do. Yeah, John, he's on his way back to write an offer. And they're like, yay! And then it didn't happen. So now it's like, oh, awesome. And I'm optimistic because it happens very little, but it happens. But I don't call that seller. If I call them a feedback, I say, went really well, it's under serious consideration. Because it has happened. And the agent, and it has happened, and they've called me and Deb, they said they were going to lunch and they never came out. I mean, it's happened. Has it not? It doesn't happen with Kathy Apple because Kathy goes, I'm going with you. Like, she's not letting him off the leash until, and I'm like, Kathy, you gotta let go. Paper is another word for professionalism. Getting it on paper is just another word for professionalism. You know, realtors don't have a great reputation, do they? I mean, we're getting better, but we don't have a great one. People think they can call us at midnight, right? They don't take us seriously because the majority of the realtors don't take their job seriously. So when you start taking your job seriously, other people will take you serious. You know what I mean? Because real estate started with a bunch of housewives that didn't have the kids are in school and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go sell real estate. That's how it really, was that not the day a long, long time ago? Like, probably probably even when you first got into it 30 years ago. It's changed now, it's a profession. But there's still a little bit of a stigma about realtors. So we have to bring that profession up. And by doing so, we have to act like professionals. So paper is just another word for professionalism. And I don't need to tell you guys, I have this in my notes because it was so long ago I started this. You can get the contracts on forms. Honestly, when I started this, people were still typing them. But is everyone here on Form Simplicity? Obviously, that's great. Do you have e-sign? Get it? Awesome.
Do you like the Form Simplicity e-sign?
Absolutely, I love it. How about you?
I use DocuSign.
Yeah.
You know what? The uploading the forms, if they're not company forms and so on, it's just a pain.
Oh, see, yeah, you have a lot. I mean, I don't know what company forms you have. I upload a couple of forms, but not bad. But no, I love it. I can send it to anybody from there. If I send one and I'm away and I know my client signed it, they can't screw it up because it won't finish. And I can send it to John so that I know when it's done. I don't have to go look and then make sure I get it to John, that he knows it's done. It's done. So I like it. I use DocuSign. I mean, I'm not DocuSign. I haven't used it. I just, that may be as good. I don't know. I use Form Simplicity, and it has the unlimited, when you do that, it has the unlimited storage, which I love. You can fax from there if someone doesn't have an email. All right from there. It's just, if you, e-sign, I personally like it, and if you're not using it yet, learn it, and get it. It's cheap enough, because you will run into a client that says, I want to electronically sign them. That happened, my friend, $100 million a year in business up in the Panhandle. I went there, I don't know, a year ago, and I said, oh, I got this great thing. I do e-sign when I can, and I love it. I don't have to, I'm paperless, and da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, I'm not going to learn that. I go, oh, no, you got, and she's dealing with $1 million people. I go, oh, there's going to be a time. I swear to God, I left her house. 2 days later, she called me. She said, I signed up. How do I use this e-sign? They called me, and I'm like, I signed up now to send it to them. And she was panicking. And this is someone, like, what do you mean you don't know how to electronically send this to me? We have to stay on the cutting edge of what people want, and that's the generation. People don't want it printed out, sign it, scan it. I've had people sign it on their phones, which I think is insane. I don't know how they can possibly read it on their phone, but next thing I know, they're like, I just sent it from my phone. I'm like, that's what's going on right now, guys. So if you're not, look at that. If someone in your office has e-sign, ask them to show it to you. See if it's worth it. All right. Commandment. Oh, I almost passed one. Commandment number 3, your client always comes first. Don't rush your client into signing a contract that's not good for them. I've seen that happen. We're like, oh gosh, calculate the commission. I don't ever calculate my commission until it's completely executed and the deal is the contract signed. Then I calculate my commission. So you don't want to push your client into signing something that's not right for them so you can earn a commission. I've seen it happen. It will backfire. You will not be in business for a very long time. Make sure there's sufficient escrow. These are things to think about. I do it sometimes as a joke. Like I'll say to my client, I don't write that many because I don't work that many buyers, and this is a good friend. I go, want to see if they'll ask for more escrow? Let's put $1,000. And it's almost a game. And I'm amazed. I go, they didn't. Now my client I know is not going to back out of it because I know him. I only do it with my really good clients that I know want it. I would not do it with a client I didn't know because I want to get paid. But I'll watch to see. They don't ask for more escrow. It's amazing. So make sure you get enough escrow. Now you're dealing with a VA loan and the kid's going for 100% financing and they're asking for the seller to pay the closing costs. So $1,000 to them could be $10,000. That's a different story. It's all relative on what you're dealing with. You can't ask a kid that $1,000 is like the end of the world to them for $5, because you know what? That $1,000 is everything they got. That's what I want. I want skin in the game. It's not about what my seller will keep But what I'll keep, because guess what, we're never gonna see it. I don't care, unless the buyer signs off on it, we're never gonna see it, because now we're all using the title company escrow accounts. We're not, FREC doesn't get involved. Everyone knows that, right? FREC does not get involved with escrow that's in a title company. So in the old days, when we used to have our escrows, that was okay, we could get it. So I tell myself, we're gonna get this escrow, not because you're gonna get it, it's something the buyer will lose if they don't perform. So I look at that as a, and I used to say to the agents when I counter, I need to get more escrow because I can't have my client pack up this house for $1,000. And it went in this ear and out that ear. They don't care about my client. So I started going, we can't let this deal go for 30 or 60 days for $1,000. Do you want to work for 30 or 60 days for your client to walk away? We need more money so that you and I aren't working for nothing. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah. So don't talk about the seller because they don't care. Talk about them. So explain to them why. You know, why you need more escrow. Don't put that in a letter. Don't let your client put their whole life on a moving truck for no money. Because it could happen. I mean, it's happened to me. I've been stupid enough in my younger days to go, yeah, it's $200,000, $1,000 in escrow. 2 days before closing, the agent goes, yeah, they changed their mind. Keep the money. You know how much it is to call a mover and get all that? They're in the hole. Now, again, if a buyer walks from a sufficient amount and the seller doesn't get it, what my job is to protect that seller that buyer is not going to walk. I just built a house on the beach. They asked for $1,000 to build my house for a year. I looked at my friend and I said, where do I sign? I literally bought this house package in the Panhandle for $1,000 and went to sleep like this. If I decide in a year I don't want it. I read the contract. They couldn't sue me. I could sue them if they didn't perform. They could only keep my escrow. I'm like, $1,000? I did it because that's what I thought. Oh, I'm going to walk away from $1,000. So that's what people are thinking. So you need to make sure that you don't put your client in jeopardy over a little bit of money. Protect your client from ambiguous contingencies. Don't just look at the sales amount, because that has happened. I mean, I have watched them, and it's just all about that sales price. Because what is the client looking at? The client doesn't do contracts every day. What are they looking at?
On the net.
Well, they're probably not even seeing the net. I don't know. You should make sure your client sees the net, but they're looking at that sales price. And that's all they're focused on. And time to get out, probably. Those are the two things. They're not reading through that. They're hopefully trusting you, but their trust better be well placed. Ambiguous contingencies. Anybody want to throw one at me? An open-ended ambiguous contingency? Come on, John.
I think what I've had recently.
Well, here's this
Sale
one.
of the home.
What?
Sale of a home in another state.
And they don't give you anything else. No time, no contract. Contingent on satisfactory home inspection. That's on almost all of them. And I'm like, it's in the contract. When you write that in, that paragraph is null and void. Even the as-is one. I've seen it on as-is. I'm like, they have sole discretion here, and then they write it here. But what did they do when they wrote it here?
Changed it.
So no longer, the dates are no longer valid in this paragraph. Okay?
I usually have my clients initial next to that paragraph. If they feel strongly that it needs to be in writing, I think it's initial right
Yeah, there you go. I like
here.
that.
You know,
So,
it keeps them quiet.
another one, contingent on acceptable financing. And it's in the body over here. What does it do to that body? Nullifies it. What's acceptable? What's acceptable is what's acceptable to the buyer, and they can say that's not acceptable. So you need to be careful of that. And, you know, the as-is contract has sole discretion, and that's why I don't like it. We're going to just tag on that for just 1 minute. A lot of realtors are writing as-is. And I'll have a beautiful house with you can tell it's in great shape. There's probably gonna be a GFI or, you know, a few little things here and there. And I'll get an as-is contract. And I'll call the agent and say, why did you write it as is? I'm not offering it as is, it's not falling down. And I swear to God, this is what the agent said to me, on a $370,000 listing. My client liked the idea of the easy out. And he put, instead of 15 days standard, he changed it to 20. I said, that is why we're gonna counter on a regular contract. And you know these agents that get upset when you counter on a different contract? It's a counter. Doesn't mean they have to cross out and go on theirs. You can counter on any contract you want. You know, that's the ego getting in. That's the ego getting in. What's the difference between me typing a new one on a form that doesn't have the, instead of crossing it out and saying it's not as is? So, the as is bothers me because that's a free look at the house. And if you're gonna do that, you pick your battles and you say, and that's in another paragraph, all right, we're gonna give you that, but you're not getting 15 or 20 days. You're getting 5 or 7. And you make sure your seller knows this is an out. If you're okay with that, this is an automatic out. And I love when I get those, and then there's a GFI, and they go, yeah, they want to fix that. I'm like, eat your cake. I mean, you wanted the out, and now you want them to fix a $50 item. By the way, we'll fix it. If you sell one of my listings, we will fix it. So here's some other, you must tighten up loose end contingencies. You must tighten them up. Sometimes you can't cross them out because it's a battle, so you want to tighten them up. Short time frames, okay? And here's some examples that maybe we didn't say. Satisfactory home inspection, contingent on buyer's review of the seller's disclosure. Has anyone got that? I know you guys are new. Has anyone got that one? If you don't have, if an agent doesn't have it on the listing agreement, and I normally do, I make my seller fill it out, sign it, and send it back with my counter and cross that out and say, don't sign the counter if you don't like the seller's disclosure. I like this one, contingent on reviewing the condo docs, the deed restrictions. Here they are, cross them out. Don't sign it until you reviewed them. Even if there's no counter, cross that out and say, here they are, this is my counter. I'm crossing out the deed restriction because there's no time frame on it, and here they are. So don't initial that change till you've read them, right? I had one that actually said contingent on Brother Joe coming and previewing the home. I did. I can't make that up. All right. I told you, if you need to have those, you just shorten those time frames. When you're working with buyers, avoid writing the loose end contingencies because they want them. Because you got to think about it. We're not doing this because we just want to work for free. You know, people go, oh, I love my buyers. I want to protect my buyers. The contract protects your buyers. I want to make money. I want everyone to be taken care of. I want fair, win-win, but I don't want to work for nothing. So when I'm dealing with a buyer, they say, I want it to be contingent on satisfactory inspection. Know your contract and point it out to them and go, it's all right here. And if they're still balking, say, then we need to do as is. And then when you call Debbie Rector, say, listen, they want it satisfactory. They want to make sure if they don't like the roof inspection, at least I know. Not that they want an out. Because here's the difference between an as-is and a regular one. If the roof's not leaking, it's okay. They could look at it. Now, we have the insurance kicks in, and I'm getting way out of realm, but insurance won't allow it unless you have, it's 3 to 5 years. They change it all the time for roof life expectancy. So know that when you list a house, if you have an old house, you need to look into that so you know where you're at in your life expectancy, but that's another. If the roof, if they're like, Deb, we know, it's older, we just want to make sure it has a couple of years, we're paying cash or whatever. You know what I mean? They want to know, well, the hot water tank's working, but it's older. This house is older. I just want to see the report and make sure I'm okay with it. I get that. So see the difference? Not the, I just want to, they like the easy out. So that's where you may see them do that. You'll see an as-is when you got a house that's going to be nickel and dime with, I don't know, little things, it's an older home, you know, and just get nickel and dime, and you're like, oh God, I don't even wanna have to have the handyman out to do all this, it's a pain in the neck. Alright, and your time is worth money. Realtors forget that. It's worth money, so it's great to protect your clients, and that should be one, but not so that they can waste your time. So don't waste your time with non-serious buyers. You know, make sure that everything, that they're protected, but don't make them have an easy out because they aren't. You know what, make sure they want the house before they buy it. How about that? Let's just make sure they want it, and then let's protect them. Take control of your client. If your client gets emotional, don't get emotional with them. Don't feed into their frenzy. Stay open-minded, and this is where it comes. Let them sleep on it. That's the same thing with a buyer. If they get a counteroffer, let them sleep on it. And then I have in here take backups. There's no reason to not take a backup. Watch the time. I have a tendency to talk a lot, so I have to watch the time. I apologize. Commandment 4 is educate your client. And that'll help with all the other stuff. If you just let them walk all over you and say, write this contingency, write that one, you need to be able to educate them as to why not to write these. So, first and foremost, read through every contract with every client. And I don't mean blah, 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 you know, it's 11 pages. But you want to know that contract. If you haven't, the newbies, if you haven't sat down and looked at the sales contract, do it and understand the paragraphs so that you can just say this paragraph talks about this, this paragraph talks about that. When I first got into business, and you need to do that with a listing agreement too. But when I got into business, I didn't work sellers, I only had buyers. And back then, and Richard will remember this, well, I don't know if you were in Florida back then, but it was legal, it was front and back. Press hard, because you had 5 copies to sign. And it was about the same stuff that's in the 11 pages now, just they've elaborated it. But I would sit in the conference room, and everybody thought I was crazy, and pretend that you were across the table from me, and I'd go, okay, this is da-da-da, and I would go over the contract, bullet points. So you need to know it so they understand it. You need to explain the home inspection part to your buyer or your seller. You need to make sure they understand it and say, okay, Mr. Buyer, you know that pool, when we're writing this contract, you know that pool that you pointed out, the pittedness in the pool? That's not gonna be in a home inspection. So you need to understand what things are gonna be in a home inspection and what aren't, for your buyer and your seller. Yeah, I know you, so if you're thinking at this price that the home inspection come out and they're gonna resurface this, it's not gonna happen. If you think that they're gonna say, oh, the roof's old, if it ain't leaking, they're not gonna fix it. So you need to educate your buyer when you're going through that part of it. And I think that alleviates some of it if you don't just say, okay, there's a paragraph in there. Explain the paragraph. Same thing with sellers. Oh, same thing with sellers. You know, go through that and go, all right, now here's the thing. This is how much you're responsible for, but it has to be not working. It can't be, oh, the hot water tank's working, but it's old. You tell your seller, no, then you're good there. It cracked tile, you're good there. You give them explanation as to what, both sides of it. I sold a house in Pine Ridge, got them, was a regular contract, that's how they offered it, that's how I sold it as a buyer's agent. Gave them the list of inspection, the inspection repairs, gave them a summary, gave them the home inspection, and wrote down what I expected to be, what my client told me what expected to be done. And the agent came back and said, oh, they're not fixing any of this for that price. She didn't educate her client. So it was a battle, which it shouldn't have been. You know, it shouldn't have been a battle. She should have educated her client. And for her to say that to me, it's like, are you kidding me? You don't know your own contract? So, you know, you better know it and you better educate your client so that doesn't come up and bite you after. Of course, they'll forget it. They'll, I don't remember you telling me that. Because that's happened. I don't remember you telling me that. I'm like, oh, come on, I do. And I'll say to them now, remember, when we talk about this, remember this conversation. We talked about this. So there are many different terms. You want to talk about the price. You want to talk about the deadlines. You want to tell them how long the inspections are going to be. You're going to point these things out to them, buyer and seller. You're gonna talk about contingencies. You're gonna talk about move out. Don't assume your client understands that they have to be out the day of closing, unless it's written in. Because a lot of them are from Massachusetts or New York or wherever, where we have 30 days after closing. So that you have to explain to them, unless it's written in there, you will be out the day that we close. This one, use special care and caution when encountering verbiage. Make certain your contract is clean. In other words, there are agents that will write some crazy verbiage. And be careful to try to stay away from that, because FREC tells us not to. But there are times, I'm sorry, I've been in the business 18 years, you've been at 30, we have to write verbiage in there to specific needs of clients. But be very careful when you see people writing in there. And of course, it changes to contingent on satisfactory inspection is going to change the inspection contingency. Changing anything in the additional verbiage that is already brought in print, guess what? This overrides it. So be very careful when you see that. Don't think, well, it's over here, and they're just, no, once they put it here, it nullifies this paragraph. Or changes it. It changes. All right. Commandment number 5. This is one of my favorites. Pick your battles. Win the war. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. Before presenting a contract, ensure you have familiarized yourself with the entire contract. What I do is when I get a contract, I write bullet points of things that concern me. Price, and I usually do a question mark, depending on, they may be happy with it. And then I might, if it's escrow, I'll put escrow, more, inspection, discontinue. I'll write the things that I need, and I'll say to the client, we're going to talk about the price, I'm telling you the price now, but there's other things. You're going to make a decision on the price, and I'm going to advise you to the best of my ability, but there's things here that I know about contracts that I want to talk to you about. Because again, all their focus, they stop listening to you as soon as they hear the price. They just stop listening, because they're not even thinking about the other stuff. They would sign anything if the price was right. I mean, most of them. There are very savvy buyers and sellers. And I anticipate any battles ahead and choose the best course of action. I was telling my friend this, I said, it's like a chess game. You want to know, this is going to be a battle. If we say this, what are they going to say? And then what are we going to say? So that it's a chess game. You know, how many moves ahead? I jump horses. When I'm jumping this fence, I'm looking at the jump over there. You're always looking ahead. Don't let your ego get away. You're going to hear that more than once. Don't get emotional. You don't have to win every point of the contract. Only the important ones. Fireplace, perfect example. Are you really going to use the fireplace? Well, no. I just don't want to tell me, let's give them that. Pick your battles. Let go of the unimportant issues and let the other party win something. Another one is I just had a client that I sold his house regular because I knew his house was going to be fine. I didn't want it as is. The agent wrote a regular one. And when I went over it with him, which I went over it when I listed the house, he forgot that conversation and hated that 1.5%. Hated it. Now, his roof had to be completely redone. There was no way his house was going to hit 1.5%. He had a termite contract, so that was null and void. But the other one, 1.5%, and he just was losing it. And I said, what do you think's wrong with your house? Well, there's nothing wrong. I said, it's probably a GFI, a reverse polarity, maybe a leak if the toilet's not shut off. I mean, I'm just naming. He's like, well, none of that, not even that. I go, then why are we changing this? One, and please understand, when you guys put 0 in a regular contract as a listing agent, and you're like, well, at this price, I'm just not fixing anything, and you put 0, or you put $1, which I've seen, what do you think happens at that point?
People get suspicious.
Well, they get suspicious, but what happens to you once they do their inspections?
And they determined to find something?
If they find a reverse polarity that costs $50 and they want an out in this contract, you just gave it to them.
Mm.
You just gave it to them. We had one, Kathy sold the house and it was being sold regular, and she did a regular contract, and she understands my philosophy on that. And the agent was representing her parents, and they put 0 through that. Our client called her at the hotel, and he accepted it. He's like, fine. Called her from the hotel, and ordered the home inspection, had the home inspector there the same day, so he was getting it done. Called the hotel and said, hey, this new one came on the market in Ocala. I want to look at it. Kathy called me and she said, what do I do? He's got it under contract. I go, I guarantee there's going to be something wrong with that house. So if he wants out, he has an out. Show him that house. What do you think? He looked at that house in Ocala. He wrote an offer on that house in Ocala. The repairs on this house over here were $250 worth of stuff. And he walked from it, and he had every right to, and he took his $10,000. And that agent was standing there like, and Kathy told her, when we do this, he has an out. So remember that. You think you're being smart, and you're like, all right, at this price, we're not fixing anything. Think about it. Pick your battles. Pick your battles and win the war.
If you put 0 in that, instead of like let it ride at 1.5% or 0.5%, or if you change it at all.
If the repairs are over 0,
Gotcha, okay, gotcha.
seller doesn't
Gotcha,
have to
gotcha.
do it, but neither does the buyer. They're
Gotcha.
signing the same contract.
Gotcha.
Do you guys get that?
Yeah, now I do,
Yep.
thank you.
So,
Yeah, so even if the seller says, I'll fix it, it doesn't matter.
buyer can get out. They
Right.
sign the same contract.
Yeah.
Not only is the seller saying if the repairs are over 0, I don't have to fix it. The buyer's saying if the repairs are over 0, I don't have to buy it. So, sometimes people think they're being slick and smart. They're shooting themselves in the foot. So, just, and then it all goes to pick your battles, win the war. If your client is saying at this price I don't fix anything, say, let's talk about what you think is going to need to be fixed, because this is what could happen. I had one. Here's one, and I just want to give you an example. I was working with an agent on a contract, and we were going back and forth, and the agent was getting hostile. I'm like, I hung up on the agent a couple times. I'm like, I gotta go. If you're gonna continue to yell at me, I'm hanging up, which I will. I'll tell you I'm hanging up, but I'm gonna hang up. I cut commission to put the deal together. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna cut $2,000. I didn't ask the agent. I'll never ask the agent. I always go in my own pocket, and if they choose to go in their own, that's up to them. I used to be the one that I'll cut if you cut. I don't do that anymore. I don't like people in my pocket, and I won't go in theirs. So I cut commission. The agent didn't have to. He got his client up. God bless him. And I forget what it was. I know what it was. They counted again. I said to him, I told you that was my last counter. I cut commission. Where do you think? I won't cut commission if I can't get my seller up anymore. There's no more. And he goes, well, fine then. And I knew it was the agent, not the client. Fine, then we're only putting $1,000 in escrow because the initial counter was 5. And I went, then we're done. Because all I'm thinking about is, what does he want? He wants the last word, right? They want the last word. And I'm okay with that. You just got to tell me ahead of time that you need to have the last word, because I'll let you have the last word. I'll figure it out. But the one thing you weren't going to mess with was when you said that on the escrow, we were done. Because again, it's about packing up the house. I'm like, and they came around. I said, no, we already countered that. I'm sorry they don't like the price. I did the best I could. I cut my commission, and I'm thinking, click, click. If you want this deal, I'm not saying it, cut your commission or they come up. And he got him up. But not before he tried to get that last word on the escrow. I'm like, it has nothing to do with the price. He already agreed to the escrow. So it's about getting the last word. So pick your battles, win the war. I like this one. People don't think it happens anymore. Commandment 6, network for multiple offers. In the heyday, those of us that were in the heyday, you don't want my house, my listing, then tomorrow I'm going to sell it for more money anyway. So we saw them. But you can still see them. I had multiple offers through the downtime. If you price your house right and you network it. and a lot of agents get upset, but I don't work for you, not work for you. I like you. John's one of my dearest friends, but my job is for my seller. John can write me an offer and say, Deb, I'm sending you over an offer. And Tony can call me and say, Deb, John calls me and says they like it, show him well, it's under consideration. Tony shows it and says, I'm writing an offer. Great. I called John and said, John, don't want you to waste your time. You said your clients were interested in this. Just want to let you know I have another agent writing an offer. By the way, guys, if I call you and say that, I do not bluff. Not gonna say I'll put it together, but you can take that to the bank that I do not bluff on that. I might tell you that my client thinks your client's great, and that's a little bit of a bluff, but when it comes to that, and I've had agents go, well, my client doesn't want to get in bid more. Okay, just wanted to make sure you knew about it, which, I'm sorry, that is the stupidest statement I have ever heard. The stupidest statement I have ever heard. They're gonna write an offer, but there's another offer in, so they're not gonna get a bid more. Here's this, write your offer for whatever you want to pay, and you don't have to pay any more than that. But yours might actually be better than the other one. It doesn't mean you're gonna have to go higher than you want. Just give me your offer, and if you don't want it, you don't want to go higher, you don't have to go higher. So when I hear my client doesn't want to get into a bid war, I'm like, you haven't educated your client well. But you call those agents, and then, so John calls me and he says, well, thanks for the heads up, Deb. They're writing it. They're gonna write one. Then I get to call Tony back. I go, Tony, another agent is writing an offer, so you just might want to write highest and best. And I'm not one to get, if people give me the highest and best, I take it at that. When I say give me your highest and best, if they both come in and my seller says, I don't want him to go back, I'm like, really, let's not get greedy. Either counter this one if it's the best is not still good enough, or take it. But I'm most likely not going to go back and go, okay, give me your highest and best again. And I've had that. Well, duh, they would have went higher. I told you to give me your highest and best. And they get mad. I didn't get a counter. Well, am I going to counter 2 contracts? What happens if I counter 2 and they both accept it? I have just sold the house twice. So, there's nothing wrong with networking. I've done it. I've said to an agent, my client owns the house, I'm trying to get it on paper. I'm working on it. Let me know if something comes up with that house. Then my client the next day writes it, and I call the agent and said, all right, I'm bringing over a contract. I took an offer last night. Are you kidding me? You did not do the right thing for your seller. You didn't call Deb who said, I'm working on it, I'm trying to get it on paper. If something comes up, let me know. Like you. That's if I didn't call you back and sold it while your people were on the airplane. What I've been doing, I love you, Tammy, we've been friends, but it wasn't about you. If I didn't do it, it wouldn't have been the right thing for my seller, correct?
Correct.
I've heard this one. Tony writes the offer. John, I call him and I say, Tony, another agent's writing the offer. I've heard this, you have to present mine first because mine came in first. Where is that written? I'm just telling you this in case someone says it to you, because they will. It's not written anywhere. First come, first serve. We're not in a donut shop, as Kathy would say. We're not in line at the donut shop. So don't think because yours was first that they look at yours and counter yours. They're going to look and either take or counter, whichever's best. And it was funny. I've heard, Deb, we've been friends. I go, and let's go have a drink, but I can't help you. So that is network from multiple offers come in at number 6. We're getting there, guys. And then you can ask me questions if you have any, if I haven't bored you to death. 7. I love this one. Almost never bluff. And that kind of gets into what I was just saying. Never bluff. Don't tell an agent you have another offer unless you have one. And most of the time, I've had agents, they thought I've bluffed, and then they've called me and went, it went pending. I called you. I did, Because most of the time, unless it's someone that really doesn't want to buy the house, I'm going to put that contract together. Whoever's writing it, unless their client is crazy, I'm going to put it together. I'm going to talk to my client. I'm going to talk to the agent. We're going to work together. It's communication. We're not against each other. Wait, if you write a contract with me, it's not you against me. It's you and me making our buyer and our seller happy. a win-win. So if I say it, it's probably gonna happen, but if you're a bluffer and you say it, people aren't gonna believe you. So don't bluff and say you have one. And that goes with both sides. I've done it. I'm not gonna lie, I've said it in my old days. This is their first choice, but they have a second. Because if you don't have a second and they absolutely want it and they come back, then guess what? That listing agent has a little bit more. If you come back and they've already said they're going for the second, we have a little bit more power. We know you really want it. So, don't say this is, and again, don't say this is it if it's not. And I'll tell agents, the client says it is, I'm just repeating it, I don't know. That, if they tell me it is, I gotta believe that, again, the client that I'm working with. But I'll tell you, they're telling me it, I don't know. And sometimes they're bluffing. And when I come back to you and my client goes, well, I need to leave more room, and I go, listen, let's just go back with our best counter, let's stop the madness. Let's just go back with our best, and if they don't believe us, when I say, no, really, that was it, then they believe us. So that's kind of how you work for that one. 8, we're talking about backup offers and counter offers. Commandment number 8, when presenting an offer to a realtor. And it's better now. When I wrote this, it was more fax machines, but try to get the cleanest copy to the realtor. Try to get the cleanest copy. Back then, I mean, we've gotten lazy, and we can, because technology's great. We can scan an email, and so it's awesome. So this is almost a viewpoint, but back when I wrote this, we were faxing, and someone would fax me a contract, and I could barely read it, because their fax machine wasn't great, or mine wasn't, and they literally were 2 minutes down the road. I still believe, if you're close, I mean, if I'm going to you, and you're in Inverness, and I'm in Denellen, that's where my house is, and I work out of, I'm not gonna drive over there. But I still believe in the whole getting to know the realtor and giving them your contract and explaining so that they know your face and they might be a little more. Now, we're all busy, but if it's convenient, I would say do it. Because when you know someone and you can work with them, it's just a little bit than a face on the other side of an email. You know who they are. And if you've worked with them for years, if John sends me something, I don't need to sit and talk to John. I know John.
You did the first time.
Did I?
Yeah.
See?
You came to my office.
Brought it, didn't I?
Brought it, yes.
Because you want to know who you're working with, and you want to be able to hand it to them. And back then too, it was the clarity of them wasn't that good. So I still believe in that, but at least make sure it's a clear copy. Don't just drop it off or email it, like I said earlier, or fax it without an explanation. I mean, I would find that they'd be, if the agent didn't have a fax, they'd be sitting on the front desk without an explanation. I know I'm being repetitive, but these are because they're important things. Call the agent, let them know it's on its way, if they have any questions, and if you want to reiterate something to them that's not written, then you reiterate it. Always present your offers and counteroffers, how they arrived at it. We talked about comps, reason for the long closing date. Someone sends you a contract and it's got a 90-day closing date, and Debbie Rector's looking at going, why? Well, this is why, and this is important. Because I'll call agents and say, how important, before I present a contract, I'll look at the points, and if it's got a short closing or a long close, something that's not gonna work great for my client, I'll call the agent and say, is this closing date important? Explain to me, is this a deal breaker? And they'll go, oh no, they just thought that the client might want that time, or, oh yeah, Deb, it is, because they don't, they're moving here, they took a job, or whatever. Then I can say to my seller, this isn't gonna be we can't mess with this, or you may lose it, because they have to have it. So, it's good to, once you look at it, ask the things that are concerned to you. So explain why certain things, why they came up, comps if you can. If the offer's low, you send them comparables. And when you're countering, we talked about it, be pleasant, but you bring me an offer that's way low and the comps don't substantiate it, and I have it priced in here and the comps do. What should I do when I send my counter? Send him the comps with a nice thank you letter. And I always thank the agent, dear Tony, thanks for your offer. My seller and I want to thank you for showing their property and writing the offer. They want to thank Jane and Joe Smith for their offer. It's always nice when someone likes your house enough to make you an offer. After careful consideration and number crunching, they've arrived at their counter, which is attached. They've counted some of the contingencies. They counted one, and I'll bullet point one because if it's one of those, and this is why, and explain why. This would put them in a position where they would have packed the house up for nothing. So let your client have this much time, or explain why you're, and then I put at the end, I look forward to working on this closing with you. Hoping that that's a good, instead of going, here it is, and they don't know why. And I hope that client, that agent Tony will say to the buyers, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith wanted to thank you for your offer. Because people don't hear that when they don't bring a full priced offer. You know what I mean? Start your counter offer with, as I said, thanking the realtor for their time and their effort. This takes the hostility out of the negotiations right out of the gate. So don't be a paper pusher. And I know she said don't talk about commissions, and we're not going to talk about what commission is, but commandment number 9 is don't be ashamed of your commission. So many people are ashamed of what they make in real estate. It's almost like it's too good to be true. It's not. We work really, really hard. A lot of people that don't know real estate think we just drive around and show pretty houses. I've had 2 of my clients come work for me and have looked at me and said, oh my God, you don't make enough money, when they realize what a true realtor does. So don't be ashamed of your commission. Remind the seller. Because most of the time it's the seller that's going to ask you to negotiate. They're going to go, I'm going to cut this if you cut this. And I remind them, we entered into an agreement, this listing agreement, and you agreed to pay me this much money. Now, if this number doesn't work, I get it. And I might explain, well, I don't know if it's going to appraise or, go into all that. I get it if that's still the route you want to go. So let's just counter with what you need. Because and I tell them when I list it, I go, listen, let's just get something straight. Don't ask me to cut my commission, because I'll go in my pocket if need be. If we're close enough, I'm a business person, I'm gonna do what I need to do to make a deal happen, but if someone asks me for it, I shut down. I don't know, that's how I grew up. I say it like that. But I remind them, we entered into an agreement, because here's the thing, guys. I just had one. I was awesome. I was his savior listing his house, and he just wanted to get out of Dodge. 60 days later, and he was on the market for 6 months with another agent, same price. 60 days later, I bring him an offer, cash, from another agent. Cash, no contingencies, $20,000 in escrow, $400-something thousand house. No contingencies. And all of a sudden, I'm not worth what I get paid, and he has gold. That's what happens. You go from the hero to the zero, making way too much money, and their house is gold, and they don't need to sell. So, I'm just telling you what happens, and not all of them. Then you have the ones that, I had a guy, it was a $400,000 house, and I have the email because I kept it. You are worth every penny. So there are the 2. She had no problem signing it up, or him, they, I don't remember. But anyway, so remind the seller that you entered into an agreement with them for them to pay you a certain commission. And this is a do in there, think about it. Do they go to their attorney and say, I hear you're the best divorce attorney in town, and I want to hire you, but I only want to pay you $100 an hour. I know you get $200. Or I need to get a new heart, and you are the best doctor, and I want you, but I can't pay your fee. Let's just break it down. I hear you're the best hairdresser in town, but I'm only gonna pay $10. Who else do they do it to? Who else do they do it to? They don't do it to I don't do it to my nail tech. I wouldn't go to the, I go to the best nail tech that my nail's not gonna break, but I'm not gonna go, yeah, I can go down the road, but, and our commissions, they sign, they know it ahead of time. And the buyers, do you love the buyers? They want you to cut the commission, because you know what? I'm making you, whatever they say, I'm paying you, I love that one. I'm paying you $10,000. No, you're not. You're getting my service for free. The listing agent is giving me some money for doing it. So I love that one. So know that you're worth it, but you gotta be worth it. You know what I'm saying? You can't put a house on the market, put them in multiple listing, I call it the 3 Ps. Put them in multiple listing, put up a sign, and pray that someone sells it, and think you're worth it. Know your contracts, take care of your clients, don't let your commission come before their best needs, and then you're worth it. Then you're worth it, so, know that. Sometimes you see a seller and a buyer that's moving, and they're like this, and they get here, and you're like, no one's moving anymore. That's when you can say, as an agent, as a buyer or a seller, that's when you can say, I can't get them up anymore. And the seller's agent is saying the same thing. Then you can say, as a listing agent, I'll say, okay, I can make $8,000 or I can make nothing. The commission's 10, let's just say 5. And the small deals, there's no room. But if you get a big deal, commission's 10. If I give up $2,000, I can put this deal together. So I either make 8 or nothing. 8 or nothing. Then I'm gonna do it. Does that make sense? And I'm very happy. Yeah, okay, I'm happy. $8,000 not a bad paycheck. But don't ask the other realtor to do it. Don't say, and we've done this in the past. I don't know if we were doing it when you were around, when you started, but back in the day, we used to go, I'll cut 1,000 if you cut 1,000. And we did, we just did it. And then I just had this thing and I went, God, I hate when any real seller asks me, and I'm asking a realtor. So I don't. So I'll say, this is what I can do. If you get your buyer up, great. If not, I understand. And then if they can get their buyer up, they're better than me. And if they can't and they don't want to cut their commission, that's their choice. Or if they say, hey Deb, I'm going to cut it too and let's put a deal together, that's their choice. I don't like putting an agent on the spot. All right. And this one is commandment number 10. Good. And it's, to me, the most important one. You get a contract and you get through all this. You come out the other end and you're like, oh my God, I actually put it together. And then you stop working. There are agents that stop working. Your job is not done. Your job is just getting started. Because I've had people go, that's not my job. And in my office, it's all your job. Because your job is, whether you have the buyer or the seller, you're either making sure that buyer gets keys to that house or that seller's getting a check in their hand. And if I say to Tony, hey, I know the survey wasn't done, that's Wade's job, he had the buyer. You think that seller really cares? He didn't close and his moving van is in the parking lot because we didn't get a survey. Now the title companies have gotten better, but this is stuff that's happened when I was selling where they weren't better. They've gotten better. So your job is not over with the sales contract. You must always follow up on your closings, even if some of you have a closing coordinator, I think. That's great if they know what they're doing, but stay in touch with your client. You want them to remember you. If they start dealing with a closing coordinator, they're going to maybe forget you. And bottom line is they didn't hire the closing coordinator. So if the closing coordinator screws up, it's you that they've entrusted. Never think that it's not my job. if you do a deal with me, you're probably gonna go, oh my God, go away. Because I'm gonna say, does your people have homeowners insurance? Have they applied for homeowners insurance? Has the bank and I usually, that's about what I ask the agent. Other than that, I ask the title company and the banker. I mean, don't assume if you call an agent and say, hey, Mr. Byers' bank application was due today, did they make it? And the agent goes, yep, and you go, checked off the list. Again, not that they're lying, but if they're not a seasoned agent, they say to the buyer, did you make bank application? And the buyer goes, yep. Comes to find out that the buyer called 3 banks and talked to them, but they haven't made a formal bank application. They haven't stroked the check. Because a lot of them will ask for a check for the appraisal, or at least formal application. Some waive that. But, so what I do is I call you and say, Wade, who's your buyer's bank and their contact? And you know, I've had agents go, oh, I can't tell you. Yeah, read the contract, you can. And then I call the bank. Actually, I email the banker. I don't call anymore. I email them and I say, I understand you're representing the loan for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Have they made their formal bank application? And they're going to email me back yes or no. And the reason I don't call anymore is now I have it in writing. So here's the thing. If they say no, and this just happened, and we kept $5,000 in escrow, and he said no, she's waiting for the home inspections. And I called the realtor and I said, that's not how the contract's written. They had, I think it was 3 days or 5 days to get, I don't remember each one, that was probably a standard one, so it was probably 5. And inspections are 20, it was the standard contract. I said, didn't make bank application. Your client needs to understand they are in default of the contract, and they will lose their escrow, even if they get denied at the bank. Now, the agent told the client still didn't do it, so I emailed it by bank again. Hey, make a bank application? Nope, not yet. Didn't make it for like 15 days, and then they tried to give me a denial letter. And I went, and what thought in my head is, because I've had bankers go, oh, I'll say you did. I didn't say she didn't make application, so I get it in an email. So that I can keep track. Okay, and I tell my client, they haven't made bank application, let's just roll with them. Their money's in jeopardy. Let's just roll with them, because maybe they just didn't do the due. We don't want to keep your money, we want you to close. But my due diligence is to make sure that my client is protected. And if I say to that agent at that point, your client really better get bank financing because they have missed that deadline and their money is in jeopardy. That might make them work a little harder than, oh, just got a denial letter. Do you follow me? So it's important, even though I'm a listing agent, it's important for me to make sure that buyer has made bank application because I owe it to my seller. Does that make sense? Inspections. And I used to do this. Oh, hey John, just checking in on the home inspection. Don't forget it's due on September 22nd. And then one day the light bulb went off and I went, why am I reminding him of that? Because agents pass their deadlines. So now I just have it in my thing and I call myself, well, they didn't do their inspections. Time is up. Just letting you know. Contingency's up, just letting you know. And I had an agent, seasoned agent. No, he didn't even call me. The house was vacant and I get, I love the new lock boxes, guys. Love them. Email, Jimmy Smith entered your house and I'm like, that house is under contract. And it wasn't a realtor, so I called the number and I go, hey, you just entered my house on Monopoly. And he went, yeah, I'm doing the home inspection. I go, well, that was up 2 days ago, but have at it. And then a week after that, I get an email for the repairs from the agent. I said, he didn't inspect it for 2 days after the inspection period, and now you're sending me something a week later. You're out of it. And he was lucky. I called, it was an NEI, and they said, Deb, we're going to fix it. I said, awesome. Because honestly, doing the right thing is the right thing. But my job is not to choose what the right thing is. It's to educate my client and what the legal thing is and what the right thing is. they said, we'll fix it, and they said, hire handyman, look up handyman. I said, really, he should look up the handyman. He's the one that screwed up. Let him do a little due diligence and we'll pay it. And she said, okay. And I emailed the agent, I said, we'll pay it, but you gotta find the handyman and just let me know. And he never did it. The client's repairs never got done. So, but I let him know, I said, you're, by the grace of God, are getting these repairs done because you passed the inspection period. So you need to know what these things are. Your job isn't over when the contract's signed. I've had title companies go, Deb, I have not heard from the agent on the other side. And I've called them, I've emailed them for stuff. I haven't heard from them. I heard from them today, want to know what time we're closing tomorrow. Now the difference is, if I'm on that side of the transaction, they can do that. And I don't care. You follow me? I don't care because I'm doing it. So don't assume someone else is doing it. Your job is to make sure it's done. Because the other side may not be. It's your job to get your client to the closing table and closed. And quite frankly, my motto is the buck stops here. My client is not going to be happy if I go, hey, I'm sorry that they're not closing because the buyer didn't get homeowners insurance. Yes, the banker should have checkmate him. Yes, the buyer's agent should have reminded him. Yes, the title company should have made sure that it was in place. But sometimes all three of them don't do it. We went to, it was 2004, I'll never forget it. September 2004, we had 4 hurricanes in September. And you all know what happens when the hurricane passes the longitude and the latitude. Insurance companies shut down, they don't write any policies. That month, I closed, I think it was like $1.6 million in that month. Nobody else was closing anything. People were living in hotels, and agents were going, I'm not closing, they're like, I'm not closing anything. I'm like, well, what's the matter? Wow. And I hear, my clients said, or their clients didn't have insurance, can you believe that? I'm like, dude, the buck stops here. You should have made sure. I said, forget hurricane seasons even more, but anytime I have a to-do list, and after a couple weeks into it, have they been shopping? Have they been shopping? Have they secured it towards closer? Have they secured it? Have they secured it? I'm reminding them. Because if they don't secure homeowners insurance, the bank's not going to loan them the money. Now, I obviously don't have to do that if it's a cash deal, but mine all closed because I was on top of it at the very beginning. So there's so many things that have to be done and have to be run. Title company, hey, did you order the survey? Oh, I'm not ordering it, the bank needs to order it. Don't assume anyone's ordered it because different banks say, I'm not ordering it. Different title companies say, I'm not ordering it. Agents are saying, I'm not ordering it. If no one wants to order it, then the buyer's agent needs to call the buyer and give them the names and have them order it. But if you assume everyone else is doing it, and then the bank's assuming the title company's doing it, the title company's assuming that the buyer's agent's doing it, the buyer's agent's assuming that the bank's doing it, you see? Because that's one that they'll get you. They gotta make sure the appraisal's done. But I'll do that. Make sure, I'll call the bank after a week and a half. Have you ordered the appraisal? Why not? When are you doing it? Why not? And then after a week, did you get the appraisal in? Check on it, because until the appraisal's done, I don't really want my client packing up. And I tell them, pack the non-essentials, but we gotta get through this appraisal process. Written commitment. Do you know what the new contract states right now on written commitment? Your buyer doesn't give me written commitment. That was another one I got out of, by the way, on that same file. It's not my job anymore to assume and ask for written commitment. If you don't get it to me, your buyer is waiving it unless I get something in writing that they weren't got bank commitment. So be careful of that if you have a buyer. It's not just, oh, we didn't get bank commitment. There's a time period on these new contracts, which I have to get used to, saying if it's not to us that they don't have it, we're to assume that you're waiving that contingency. And no, you're not gonna be able to buy the house, but we get to keep your escrow. So know your contracts and stay on top of them. So if you've got a buyer, you need to be checking with the bank on the bank commitment. And then if it's getting close, you need to say, I need an extension to that agent for bank commitment if they just haven't gotten it. Or you gotta get them it, or you say, if you can't give us an extension, we're out, because they're not gonna lose their money while they're waiting on the bank. Does anybody have any questions? I know I've been like, very fast.
Do you have a list of these things? Because I've been typing and typing, I'm so confused.
Oh, I do. You mean like the checklist of things to do?
Well, oh, that would be nice too, but.
Well, I have a
I thought
handout.
that
They didn't give you a handout?
Well, I was late.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry about that.
I'm just kidding. But I do have, guys, I do have checklists. I don't have them. I might have them.
Yeah, we didn't
Nobody
get
got
it.
a handout.
We didn't hand them.
They didn't give you any?
No.
I'm sitting here saying, fill this out. Melanie didn't give you.
I have a Percy valve.
Oh, yeah, that's what we did.
She was supposed to give you guys.
Now, see?
I see people writing. I'm like, okay, they got, because I asked her, I said, you're gonna make copies of these. I don't even have that many. I am so sorry. I'm like, yeah, so where it says you, write in don't. I'm gonna have to get you guys some. I'd get you one at the office. Let me just yell to Melanie and ask her to print some. So sorry.
You work out of her office?
Yeah. I don't know how to close it, but, okay. Yeah, she's a great, very good.
Did you work out of Brooksville or the Hernando County?
No. Never did. My first job was with the DOA, but now we did it.
You said the DOA?
It's DOA.
Guys, I am so sorry about that. She was supposed to hand them out.
Okay.
But, if anyone wants my closing checklist, well, it's kind of, I don't have a lot of cards with me. Rule number 1, don't break. I have it like in a PDF, and a lot of the stuff isn't gonna make sense because it's my team stuff, but I'll send you what I have. I might have to, I have your email. Yeah, you have my email, do you have mine? Do you have mine?
No.
Okay. Wait, I'll get you.
I wrote your email.
Yeah, just write my email down and email me and I'll send it to you. The email is very easy. Debbie, D-E-B-B-I-E, Rector, R-E-C-T-O-R, 1@gmail.com. It'll just give you somewhat of an idea of what to follow up on, because that is what, the list has grown over the years of having things happen to me. Oh, I gotta remind them of this. Oh, I gotta remind them of that. But does anybody have any questions while we're waiting for them to get you the handouts? Anybody? Nothing?
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, it was really well
Thank you.
done. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going a little fast.
We can keep up with you, girlfriend.
Dealing with the banks, negotiating with the banks, back and forth. When they come out with their price and our buyers are wanting to, it's a bank, we're just gonna get the house for free. We're gonna lowball them. Where do you counsel your buyers to the line? Where's the line? How far down do you go?
Well-
Bank comes down 2, they wanna come up 50 cents.
Oh, you're talking about dealing with the bank. Oh, I hate selling foreclosures. Just, let me just get that out there. And I don't work many buyers, my buyer specialist does, she's great. I don't list foreclosures, so I don't work with them. The problem with the banks nowadays is you're not even talking to anyone. The realtor that's listing it isn't even, they're not negotiators. I laugh, talk about paper pushers. They don't get to set the price. They do the 3 Ps, and one of you guys are gonna sell it, and they ship it off to the bank. Some of them you do online now. You don't even get to send it to them. So to answer that question, these banks are so automated, they know what they want, and they're either gonna counter it, reject it, or accept it. It just is what it is. I tell people all the time, they go, I wanna look at a foreclosure. Why? You're not getting that great of a deal anymore, because they get a BPO, or they get an appraisal, and they're gonna price it at fair market value, and they don't negotiate much. In their stack, if you've closed any of them, of addendum, is like this, and I've had clients go, how do you feel about that? I go, I hate it, scares the hell out of me, wouldn't wanna sign it, but that's the only way you're gonna get this house, and don't think you're crossing one thing out, they will reject it. So, this is the only way I can say it, it's their sandbox, and you gotta play by their rules if you're selling them that way. What I have seen, because my buyer's agent watches them, like if she has someone that wants one, usually 30 days, they drop the price again. So you look at where they dropped the price last time, you look at their history, and see how far out they are, and you kind of look at how much did they drop it from the last 30 days. You follow me? And kind of follow their pattern. That's the only way I can tell you. But to strong on them and your clients say, I'm cash, you're not dealing with Mr. Smith. You're dealing with a duck that has exactly what they're supposed to do, and at the end of the day, they leave and go home. Does that make sense? It's not, oh, I gotta get rid of this. They follow the guidelines for that particular property and what they can go down. So dealing with a bank is a whole different animal. A whole different animal.
Can you talk a little off this, about marketing,
Sure.
farming, and to a lesser extent, probates?
Probates. Okay, marketing, farming, and probates. Well, marketing, obviously, it's just changed so much over the years. The few things that I am comfortable with marketing is, obviously, I went to the internet a bazillion years ago and stopped print ads. If you see me in the Chronicle, I'm trying to get a listing. You never see me selling a house in the Chronicle. I just don't. I haven't done print ads in 10 years. Internet marketing, I have my own website, but I make sure it has spider sites, because my website, they're not looking for that. They're looking for the Trulia, the Zillow. So if you have a website that gets you on those, that's the way to go. Visual tour, I'm a huge proponent for visual tour. I use visualtour.com. I know there's some free ones out there, I don't know the names of them. That's $24.95 a month. But it's not the not the virtual tour, the fishbowl. It's a slideshow image where you can spin around and I can show this whole room. I enhance on realtor.com. I hate it. I call them the mafia. The good news is if you're just starting out in the area or in the business and you don't have many listings, your monthly fee is lower because they go by how many listings you've had over the last year. But you can put your visual tour on if you enhance it. You can add stuff. So I like that. But what I do that's different, that's out of the box, is I do internet flyers. Who in here gets my internet flyer when I get a new listing?
Every day.
Can you change the type fonts on that? It
I
is
try to
so
change it once.
odd to read.
The listing itself or the?
No, just the type on the front. I've always meant to send you an email.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Change that, please.
Yeah.
It's
So
very difficult.
I'm probably one of the
Wonderful.
only ones that does it. And when I get a new listing, I keep agents, thank you, Dorothy. I keep agents in my database if I get to know them or they've sold a listing, and I put them in my database as a realtor, and they get my new listings. And you get them, you don't see anyone else's email. It says, Dear Tammy. I do that for buyer prospects. I do that for my sphere of influence, and I email it out. My past buyers, perfect, because they just bought, or they bought a year ago, whatever. And I'll be like, hey, if you know of anybody that wants this house, and they're getting it to Dear Jim. And they'll tell their friends about it. So that has worked really well for me. And I have realtors, these guys that appreciate it, and they know that I'm trying to get the word out. And then I have realtors that say, don't send it to me anymore. And I laugh. I really laugh because you don't want to know what the market is. Then I take them as they're not the serious realtors, and they're usually not the top agents that I get that from. Because my thought process is, I'll get it every once in a while. John might send me a link and say, Deb, I listed this and I thought you might have someone. He'll do that to me. Well, what do? I copy it under the MLS with my picture, and it gives me another reason to send it out to my buyer prospects. Anybody know of anybody that'd be interested in this cool house? It's all about touching and feeling people. So I do the internet flyers to past buyers, sphere of influence, realtors, and I think right now I have 374 realtors in my database. Probably 50 of them have opted out of this program, and I can see which ones they are. I just laugh, they opt out, whatever. Because someone said, oh yeah, I get your bragging emails. I'm like, this is not about bragging, this is about selling real estate. That's what this is about. It's not like, hey, I got a new listing, because I get a lot of them. I don't need to brag to you. This is about selling it. I do it when it's a price reduction. And I tell my clients that, oh, it's a price reduction. They're gonna get the new email, internet flyer out, and they're gonna do this and that. So I would say, for my marketing, that's probably one of my most innovative that nobody's really doing on a regular basis to a group of realtors and buyer specialists. If you have a waterfront property, I use primewaterfront.com. Primewaterfront.com. I like point2, the number 2, agent.com. And for horse farms, if you have anything with acreage, 2 really good sites are landandfarm.com. That's land and the word and farm.com, and horseclicks.com. Now, if someone says, I don't have any of that right now, and you get one and you're like, email them and go, what was that site for horse farms? I mean, realtors do it all the time to me. Karen Cunningham the other day, Deb, what was those horse sites you were always talking about? And I'll send it to you.
What was the point to?
Point, and then the number 2, agent.com. So those are some specialty sites I pay for. So I don't do open houses unless my client absolutely begs me. I did like the idea of the banker sitting in there with an agent. If you're a new agent, sit in an open house. Sit in an open house, sit in an open house, sit in an open house. Not the one that's down 6 roads, down a dirt road. Sit in the ones that have a lot of visibility. You're probably not going to find your buyer there, but you're going to meet people, you're going to meet sellers that want to look at their neighbor, or future sellers, I should say, that want to look at their neighbor's house. And what I tell people to do is, if you meet them and you don't get anything from them, they're probably not going to remember you unless they're going to sell immediately. Get an email and say, let me keep you up to date on what's going on in the local market. Would you like me to email you what's going on in the local market? I'm not going to send you jokes, I'm just going to send you what's going on in the local market. Good way to get their email address. And you put them in and just kind of update them if they're in Pine Ridge, what's going on with Pine Ridge, and put it in a monthly. You've got to be consistent. You can't do it once and think they're going to remember you. It needs to be consistent. So for the new agents, I think open houses are great. Also, new agents, if you don't have listings, Tony did it when he came to work with me. He's like, Deb, can I market your listings on my website? Absolutely. So ask the agents to have some listings. And they may say no. I don't know every agent, but it's stupid on their part, because I tell my clients, hey, I got my marketing and I got another agent marketing it, so we're getting a ton of exposure. So an agent worth their salt is going to let you market them if you don't have any. Because here's the thing, guys. You can't sell shoes if you don't have shoes in the shoe store. They are not online going, let me find a good realtor in Citrus County. Oh, John Mazel looks good. I'm not saying that they may Google you, but the chances of how I get buyers is they find my stuff, my listings, and I email them back. Big thing, I've had more people say, you're the first agent that responded to me. You're the first agent that answered my phone call. You're the first agent that returned my phone call. You're the first agent that actually responded to an email. It's like we do all this work and then we go, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to email them back. Let me tell you this, and feel free to go, because I can talk for 17 hours. I had a client call me and said, I'm in front of your house on blah, blah, blah street. I can't remember. It was like an $80,000 house in Floral City. I'm in Denellen. It's a Saturday or Sunday. And she said, I found your listing on another company website, big franchise website that uses the IDX like we all do. I emailed them about seeing this home and for more information, and they never responded to me. So I drove out here. I see your sign. Can I walk around? That poor person drove from Clearwater. They shouldn't have drove without getting a response from them, but she liked it enough to say, she goes, can I walk around back? And I went, my homeowner is home. Let me call her and tell her not to freak out that someone's in the backyard, and you can look at the water, because it's like a little canal. I said, and then if you want to see it, we'll coordinate getting you in. I'll get you in. So she's like, I'm sitting on the hood of my car. That would be great. So I called my client. I said, she doesn't want to get in. Don't let her in. She's just going to be walking in your backyard. And my client said, that's fine. So I call the girl back, and she's like, great. And then I call back like 20 minutes later. Did you walk around? Is it something that you want to see? She goes, your owner let me in. Which is my first thing I tell them never to do. And she's like 90, Thank God she wasn't a mass murderer. But she let her in, and she goes, she let me in. I love it. I want to write an offer. I sent her a contract electronic, I didn't even, and that agent that did the IDX never contacted her. So if someone calls you, call them back. If someone emails you, I take email people way more serious. Now, sign calls are obviously serious, but usually, I've got this house that I can sell it 17 times over if it was 40,000, but it's 100,000. You know, everybody just thinks it's small from the outside. But the email people are preparing. And don't get upset and give up if they don't respond after. They're starting their search. They said the average takes a year to buy a house, John, off the internet. It's like a year that they start. But what you do is you don't send them what they need and then think, and email a couple times and they blow you off, and then you think, they're no good. Get them in a mass email or a monthly email, just touch a base, let me know if I can do anything, so that when the day comes and they've been getting that email, they're gonna go, oh yeah, I'm going next week. So that was marketing, and I kind of got off, and the other one.
Farming and probates.
What was the second one?
Farming.
Farming. I'll be honest, Richard, I was lucky enough not to have to farm. It is what it is. I started with one of the #1 agents in the county, and she taught me the business, and she already had a name established, so I didn't farm. John, have you farmed that you could give Richard some of your
Not consistently.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. At one point I did, I will say I farmed to horse people in Pine Ridge because I'm a horse person, and I thought, and I own a horse farm, so I thought that was good. So I did postcards saying, you know, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was about I own a horse farm too. I've successfully closed horse farms, you know, call me. I didn't really get much out of it, to be honest with you. So I apologize that I haven't done, I was blessed. I stepped into a great system.
Billboard.
I did do a billboard for many, many years. I had a billboard on Highway 486. I took it down when the market started to crash, and I was looking at things to cut my expenses, and that was one. I wish I'd have never done it because it was cheap money. It just was like, oh, it's been up there forever. They called it Rector Road. It was stupid. But I did do a billboard, and in my opinion, more white space is the best. Now, my last billboard was of me jumping a hoop of flames. Perfect, because it said, we'll jump any obstacle to make your sale happen. People would call me and go, will you jump any obstacle? It was like a joke. So you gotta make it fun, I think, for someone to remember. So yes, I did do the billboard. I had 2 in the county at one point, but 1 for many, many years. Probate, I'm not sure what you wanna know about probate. I have an attorney in Ocala that I do a lot of her stuff. I don't like dealing with divorces or estates. Too many emotions, you know, in a divorce situation. If the wife likes you, the husband hates you, or if the husband likes you, because they don't want to agree on anything. And when it comes to the estates, there's usually 5 kids, and they live all over the country, and they all think it's gold, and you can never get them to agree. But if you have a specific question about probate, I'll try to answer it.
Nothing specific.
Yeah. I have a great, there's one attorney that I will use, because I know she's got everybody under control. I shouldn't say use, I will take her referrals out of Ocala, that I will take them because everyone's under control. But those are the 2 things that I cringe at, and really, I had one where there was 10 family members that had to sign the sales contract. Not even the deed, they had to sign the sales contract. It was a nightmare, but I did it. And the only reason I took it was because this attorney had sent me so many easy deals. I went, I can't cherry pick. You can't cherry pick. So.
Any comments about investors?
I think that we're obviously seeing a lot of investors starting to step back into the market. I never got involved with the LLC flippers, to be honest with you. But I'm always a firm believer, like I do some dabbling up in the Panhandle, and I had a client call and go, Deb, I hear you're up in the Panhandle too, and I want to buy a lot. As an investor, I'm like, why buy a lot? Buy something that's positive cash flow. So, and that's what I did. I didn't own any lots in Citrus County. I own houses that I can rent out. So for my investors, that's where I go with them. I look at what's the best positive cash flow, because I have a friend that went up to check it out with me, and he was looking, and he's like, Deb, why? I want to invest less, so I want to invest in this land. And I said, here's the thing, this land hopefully is gonna appreciate, we're hopefully on the right track. I mean, we've leveled off in 2012, and I've seen us kind of staying there, and it's, you know, May of 2012 is when I saw it stop going down. I said, but you gotta hope that that stays and continues. My Beverly Hills houses went up and down, and I was collecting rent on them. So I believe in spending a little bit more and getting the positive cash flow when I deal with investors. Don't have a lot of investors. Most of my people are, I get the same people over and over buying and selling, but not so much for an investment, except for now in the Panhandle.
Any comments about commercial?
There's not a lot of commercial in Citrus County, and that's why I didn't dabble in it here. I've done a little bit, but it's just so slow moving if you look at it. It's just not a big commercial area. So I will deal with the land or the building, very difficult. I'm seeing it move a little bit now, but we just don't have a lot. If I was in a booming area of commercial, I would have definitely got in it. But when it comes to businesses, I chose not to get involved in that. I referred out to a commercial specialist because it is a different thing, and I never really got into it. Just like I didn't get into short sales and I didn't get into foreclosures. I like to be good at what I do, and if I don't want to learn it and I'm not interested, I'm not going to be good at it. So those are the three things that I didn't do. I never did short sales. I would rather braid my hair on the beach. I mean, braid people's hair on the beach. Foreclosures, I won't list a foreclosure. I've had banks approach me, won't do that. And the businesses, I just had a business in Crystal River ask me, and I'm like, let me refer you to a specialist, because then you get into the financials and all that, and I can't manage my own money. My accountant says to me all the time, you can make money there, but you don't know what to do with it when you just blow it. So I'm not good at people's financials. Anybody else? No? I wish you much success in the business. And you came in later. Are you new to the business?
I am Dean with Home Run.
All right, Dean. And how long you been in it?
Oh, probably a year and a half.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, welcome. Guys, it's a great time to be in the business. Just, if I have to give you one thing before you leave, and I preach it to my agents, he who has the most, or she has the most listing, wins. It's all about listings. And sorry again about the handouts.
Yeah, really, that would have helped you a little.
I know, I'm like, people see them going, don't, this is where you write it in.
I'm sorry,
No problem, I'm glad you came. I don't know how to shut that off. Does anybody know how to shut that off? Let me just shut it off first and then talk.
Do you know were you taping yourself?
Yeah, I wasn't, school was, so hopefully I was being
my
good.
big butt, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sure she can edit it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
She edits me all the time.
Appropriately, so
Yes.
I'm sure.
Why? It must be locked or something. Start and stop.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Being that she's handling the turnover. You mentioned getting agents gifts. They were that long story. I had a bunch of them to say thank you to because they educated me on something. They spent time with me. They did the right thing. And I'm talking about a gift card.